All right. Are the Halos cheap? Are they a large market team with a small market mentality? Let's get into the details. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to give back and help the Super Halo Brothers out, that's us, for all the Angels content, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. First, leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, then subscribe. What are you waiting for? We want you to be a Locked On everydayer. And you can comment and let us know your thoughts as well. That helps out the show. Even if you're on the audio side or you're watching us on a TV, come on over to the video side and leave a comment on YouTube. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. You can swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use our promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. There are some terms and conditions that do apply. You can see Sleeper's terms of use for details, currently operational in over 30 states. Johnny, check out Sleeper today.
Already have, my friend. What's going on, everybody? This is the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. We're here every Monday through Friday through the off season until about late December. So we've got 5 days a week, and then we'll go down to 3 days a week over the holidays, and then back up to 5 again before spring training. But in the meantime, we'll be here all 5 days a week. And it's not as if there isn't a lot of content to cover with this Halo team, Mike. Look,
Yep.
It's been quite a week. There's been ups and downs and left and rights and in and outs and everything in between. And we're so glad that you're here having these conversations with us. On today's show, Sam Blum of The Athletic, friend of the pod, friend of the Super Halo Bros, wrote a terrific article last week about the monetary failings of the Angels.
Yeah.
And he really broke down and spoke to a ton of former staff, former players, things like that, and got a lot of details. And I felt like it was important for us to cover that on today's show. So, Mike, let's get into the first part of this article. Are the Angels cursed when it comes to all the injuries? Let's talk about that.
That actually was the question that was brought up to Phil Nevin when he was the manager back in September. Phil had a long answer. He said, well, whatever you want to believe, you can believe. And some people believe this and some people believe. Phil, just give us an answer. He said some weird things have happened, and he's right. And it seems like this team can be cursed. But according to Sam Blum, blaming a curse would absolve the Angels of their shortcomings. I love that Sam is just so straightforward.
I just think that there's part of this that's like, yeah, they're cursed because you have things like Gio Urshela's pelvis fracture from trying to beat a throw to first base, or even Anthony Rendon, for as much grief as we give him, like fouling a ball off your leg, which you can't control that, and then having a tibia fracture. I mean, wear a shin guard, bro. I was wearing shin guards in soccer when I was like 10 years old. Stuff like that is just like, come on, are you serious? So, yeah.
In the context of this conversation, though, it wasn't just focused on injuries. It was focused on how the franchise has performed since 2014 and really since 2010. Only one playoff appearance, 2014. They haven't won. Now they're the longest team that not win a playoff game. I think the last time we won was 2009 because the Twins won. So congratulations to them. But the Angels front office and ownership, they've consistently believed that they're close to making the playoffs. And then failures have happened. And they've said that those failures are a result of misfortune, Johnny. Perry even said, we don't feel like we're far away. However, despite their efforts, they're not any closer, right? It doesn't seem like they're any closer. And even as we look at this next year, and they said, hey, we're going to try to compete, we're going to try to win, there was kind of this collective like, okay, right?
Really?
Yeah. So Johnny, like, why is that? What did Sam say in the article?
Yeah, Sam continued. He said he spoke with 17 current and former employees and players with the organization just to try to get a better understanding why the Angels have not been able to build better teams around superstars like Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. And the consensus, surprise, surprise, is that under Arte Moreno and the organization, they've not spent at the levels of its competitors in critical areas throughout the franchise beyond just player payroll. And
so what you're telling me is everything that we've seen is true? Is that what you're telling me?
Right. We'll spend a buttload of money on the major league roster.
Yeah.
And even go past the luxury tax for about 3 weeks.
Right.
But when it comes to other areas, I think that there's a lot of frugality, I guess you could say, Mike.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's actually the word that they used here. Frugality is at the heart of the team's failures. And CJ Wilson, former Angels pitcher, he said the margins are so small between failure and success in baseball. It could be a 10 or 15 game swing in the standings from just taking care of those ancillary situations. From player development to scouting to alumni relations to technology upgrades and spring training facilities, the Angels are said to be operating a step behind, hampering the major league club. A former Angels coach in the majors and minors said they're a typical small market team. I know it's not small market, but the way the Angels go about it, it's generally small market.
That's fascinating to me, Johnny.
Yeah.
And then Sam continued in the article. He said, here's an example. At a time when other large market teams had already moved aggressively to aid technological training and evaluation aids to their organization, the Angels were lagging behind. In 2019, the team brought in advanced pitching and hitting equipment. And these pieces of equipment were supposed to help them be a whole lot better. It was cameras and machines and certain types of vests. But before 2019, they didn't have anything, John. They didn't have technology. Bullpens were thrown without any technology. They were very outdated as an organization, years behind other organizations. Another example, roughly half of the 30 teams in Major League Baseball have established dedicated pitching or hitting labs. The Angels don't have either. And here's how it affects players, Johnny. Player development, for example. We've seen that with the Halos, especially in the minor leagues, haven't developed like other teams, right? According to The Athletic, in 2021 and 2022, players were unable to afford housing or proper diet, something that we covered on this show, while crammed into small apartments sharing beds with teammates. Listen, I get, like, it's nice to be a major league ball player. Nobody wants to sleep in the same bed with another ball player. You want to have room to stretch out, right?
Yeah.
As much as these guys are friends and hanging out with each other, Johnny, I don't want to share a bed with you.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So in fact, last May, there was a group that came out. They ended up becoming the Minor League Baseball Players Association. They reported that the Angels were just one of 3 teams, John, one of 3 teams that did not offer pay at extended spring training and did not offer solo bedrooms for players at affiliates. So, Johnny, just from the first portion of this article, it does answer a lot of questions as to why things have taken place and not been really great in this organization, doesn't it?
I think so, Mike. I have to wonder regarding like the technology that they didn't have until like 2019, which is about 5-6 years past when it started to become in vogue. I know a lot of people were trying to get into data and analytics and sabermetrics and stuff in like 2011, 2012. I kind of wonder if a lot of that has to do with, obviously it has to do with the fact that the Angels aren't willing to put up the money, but I kind of wonder if that's also just kind of the Socha mentality. If Socha was old school, probably didn't need a lot of that stuff. They had a proven track record of success, so they might have been hesitant to bring that stuff in and make Socha and company use that stuff. In fact, 2019 was the year Brad Ausmus took over, and we know that he was very, very analytics driven with Billy Epler. In fact, you and I were so frustrated sometimes because, this guy can only go through the lineup twice and then he's pulled as a starter, and I hated that.
Yeah.
There was no feel for the game. I think Brad Ausmus is a very extreme version of analytics, and that's often what comes to mind when people think about that. You can't have too much feel and you can't have too much analytics. You got to have it right down the middle and have people understand that that's probably the best way forward. But in terms of the technology, in terms of the injuries, the lack of production, it makes so much sense. You have to invest in your future. And the way you do that is by putting these systems and technology things in place, and these pitching labs and hitting labs, they have to be established because these guys have to continue to grow. Mike, I feel like I brought this up with you, or maybe I brought it up on the show. There's a part of me that believes Perry Manassian is so keen on drafting college players who are MLB ready because he looked around at what the Angels don't have and went, you know what? I bet you that school or that university has a much better pitching lab and a much better pitching program or baseball program at their school than the Angels even have as a professional organization. I fully believe that. I think that's a big incentive why, not only just to get these guys up into the majors quickly, but also maybe the Angels just aren't equipped to bring in young guys and help them, quote unquote, develop, because obviously the tools that are there for them to develop are not there at the end of the day.
And to your point about Mike Scioscia, I think that there's a line in the sand between how Scioscia managed and then versus what I think Sam was addressing in this article. The analytics and things like that, I do think that there's some tension points there. And obviously we want a manager to be able to manage. But when it comes to the equipment stuff, Johnny, that's where the Angels just have failed their players, because they've just decided to move forward like they did back in the 90s and back in the 80s. And you can tell. And I think that's a part of, it's not the issue, but it is one of the major issues as to why the Angels have been the Angels for the last 10 years. It's why they haven't had success, because they don't have these things. It's why somebody like Brandon Marsh can go to the Phillies and suddenly start hitting really well. Yeah. It's why you see pitchers leave the Angels and go somewhere else. I think that that's why the Dodgers can take the outfielder from the Cubs. I'm blanking on his name, but he went from the Cubs to the Dodgers, and he rejuvenated his career. And players rejuvenate their careers in other places that I think have this technology. I don't think it's necessarily the analytics on the field. I think it's the technology off the field. It was Eric Kratz from Foul Territory that said the Dodgers treat their minor league guys like major league players. Yes. And so that's the thing that I think Sam is really pointing out in this particular section of the article, is that the Angels, they don't treat these guys as major league players. They don't even treat the major league players with the perks. And quite honestly, when you have perks, I think it actually makes a whole lot more sense in the major leagues, because you're there, you're winning. And I think it incentivizes you to continue to want to lean in and win. Look at how they're taking care of us. Gosh, I want to perform for my owner, right?
Jason Hayward, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew it was Jason. I was going to get the name, the last name wrong. I loved Jason Hayward when he was with the Braves, and I wanted the Angels to sign him. Then he went to the Cubs and struggled, and then he goes to Dodger Town and suddenly finds the fountain of youth and has an incredible season this past season.
Yeah, that was a signing that the Angels successfully avoided for a change, rather than hey, we got Hayward, and then that would have been another in a long list of bloated contracts with bad performance. Hey, coming up on Locked On Angels, does Arte think that he's cheap? That's a question that we're going to get into here in just a minute. That's a question and a half right there. We're going to talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Sleeper. You can swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and decide if they're going to overperform or underperform in their stat categories. You get your picks right, and you could win big. Sleeper works quickly, too. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less, and there are safe and fast withdrawals on all payouts. Download the Sleeper app today, and when you do, use our promo code LOCKEDON at sign up, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Check out Sleeper today.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Hey, Locked On Everydayers, good news. We have had over 200 responses for our 2023 Angels roster grades, where you can grade each player from the 2023 Angels. And we want more responses. In fact, Mike, we have more than double what we had last year for this. Awesome. So I shout out to our Locked On Everydayers and everybody getting in on the grades. And if you want to participate, all you got to do, check out the episode description, whether you're on YouTube or on the audio side. There's a link there to a Google form. You can fill out the roster grades. You can give each player a grade and leave, 1 to 3 comments about their season or about that player. Again, we'll be talking about all of this next week and showing everyone your grades and going over them next week on Locked On Angels.
All right, Johnny. So we're talking about that Sam Blum article, and he really did a good autopsy, to use Perry's word, of the Angels. And in this segment, we're going to talk about if the Halos are cheap or not. And I think the answer, what you'll find out, is that they are. There's been a lack of
Stanza.
That's great. There's been a lack of resources extended to other areas in the Angels organization, including the Angels employees. So in most every instance, it's difficult to know how well the Angels or any other MLB team pays its employees, since that information is rarely publicized. Player salaries are known, but for the most part, the pay is quiet when it comes to other positions in the organization. So there's a California law that was enacted in 2023 that requires wage listings on all job postings. It gives at least 1 point of comparison. It shows how various teams pay for a specific job in their organization. And that one example is for security. So per the listings, John, get this. Angels base salary for security guard position at Angel Stadium is $15.50 an hour, which is minimum wage in California. If you're outside of California, you probably went, what? And that's the minimum wage. My kids love it, by the way. Other venues across the state, they exceed that. So here's an example, John. The Dodgers pay between $16.58 and $19.48 per hour. The A's pay $16.30 per hour. The San Jose Sharks, they pay part-time security at $20.15 an hour. John,
wow,
what are we doing? We need to let's put an application in, right?
I don't feel safe at Angel Stadium anymore. These guys aren't getting paid enough to protect us.
Right.
Mike, let's look at the baseball operations team for the Halos and compare it to other teams. The Angels have 43 people in the department in 2023. That includes general manager, front office, all the leaders of the scouting departments, player development heads, analysts, clubhouse managers, the traveling secretary, and the video coordinator. So keep that in mind. 43 okay. For the Angels. The Dodgers, and this is very obvious because of their success, they have 79 people in their baseball operations department in 2023. And that's per a review of their online directory, which obviously the Angels are not very good at putting any of that out there. We have no idea who's on staff at the Angels except for Barry and Arte and the manager and stuff like that.
And John.
Yeah. Good old John. This accounts for a more populated front office and analytical department, as well as several positions that the Angels don't have listed and also don't even appear to carry a comparable title. So if you're wondering why the Dodgers and the Rays are so good, here's why the Rays are so good. They have a 13-person performance science department. It's a division that utilizes biomechanics, physiology, and other disciplines to improve athletic outcomes. The Angels had one person listed as a director of performance integration. So there's your comparison with the Rays. And
13-1.
I know they just got beat by the Texas Rangers and whatnot, but the reason why they're able to take scrubs into stars and get off to such a hot start they did in 2023 is because of stuff like this.
Yep, absolutely. John, when you look at the scouting department, specifically the international scouting department, the Angels International Scouting Group is composed of 20 total people. So compare that to the Yankees. The Yankees have 42. The Giants have 35. Now, 20 is usually on the low end. Teams can vary in between, but 20 is on the low end. A former Angel employee said having a small department could contribute to good players slipping by the Angels. Now, we know that Perry has drafted well, Johnny, and has an eye for young talent. But do you think that specifically when it comes to the scouting department that we'll start to see some major changes there?
I think so, because Perry's been head of scouting in his past. He's done the job in previous years. So I think that's why he's got such a good eye for talent. I also see that they are, doing better in the international free agent market, which is really crucial. I mean, that's why you have guys like Eric Ibar, right? And that's why you get guys like Albert Pujols coming over to the Cardinals. You get guys like that because they're international free agents. And I think Perry is putting a lot of emphasis on that. Edgar Caro was one of the international free agents they signed and immediately shot up the Angels rankings and the prospect list. And now he's with the White Sox, of course. But again, I mean, you find some really good talent in the international free agency market. So I think that needs to be emphasized a whole bunch. Can I tell you something funny? Can I tell you what I did? Yeah. There was a scouting position open for the Angels. And just for kicks and giggles, I applied. I put in my application. And I explained to them why I believed that I would be a good talent scout despite having no coaching experience and da-da-da-da-da.
And you got hired.
Yeah, right. No, I just think it's kind of funny. Like, I put it out there. We'll see if I get a response.
That's great.
And it was just like, why the heck not? Like, and I thought it would be funny content for the show as well. Like, can I get hired as a scout?
By the way, what were some of the reasons? I know we're getting off topic. What were some of the reasons that you said you would be a great scout? I'd love to know.
Oh, just like I feel like I'm really good at analyzing data and understanding, what makes a pitcher work well, or understanding the results that come from what they're doing on the field and what they're doing at the plate and things like that. So I mean, I had to elaborate a whole lot more than that.
Sure,
but basically, it was like I took a lot of what I do on the show and go, I think Reed Detmers is better at this than being a pitch to contact guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of the stuff that I put in there.
I host a show 5 days a week.
Right. I talk about you bums 5 days a week. You know what? Why the heck not? We'll see what I think it'd be funny content. For Locked On Angels. I went for it.
I love it. I love that you did that. Getting back to Perry for a moment, I wonder if we're going to not just see a change in the scouting, but I think with guys like Bill Hessel coming in, I wonder if we're going to see a change with some of the analytics side of things and also some of the in-house things. Obviously, he's limited with resource, but he has said, and there's said and then did two different things, but he has said that there aren't limits to certain things inside the organization. And so all of this is really just pointing out why the Angels have really struggled. And it's why the Angels didn't struggle in the early 2000s, because there was a lot of things that we're doing now that teams weren't doing back in the early 2000s. It was really just baseball people against baseball people. But now it's baseball people and analytics and scientists and bodybuilders versus baseball people. And so the Angels check one box, but a lot of other teams are checking all of the boxes. And whether you like it or not, this is the future. The future is here, right?
Yeah.
And so you can ignore it and pretend it's not there and be, a grumpy guy, like way back when we watched the movie on the A's, right? Like, oh, he has a good body and he has this. And no, we want him because he gets on base, right? And so that's the thing that I think the Angels are missing out on now, is that this is the future. This is the way to go. And the results are very clear because you're seeing it with other teams like the Rays, like the Dodgers.
You want to know why the Rays have healthy players and the Angels had 60-something injuries this season? It's because they have a 13-person performance science department. And biomechanics and physiology, that's all part of that. And so if you're part of that department and you see somebody taking a swing, like take Joe Adell, for example, maybe he took a swing and he messed up his oblique because that's what happened. I'm sure that somebody long before that took place would go, hey, Joe, you got to be careful doing this. You got to be careful doing that. Right. And Matt Moore with his oblique, hey, Matt, I think you're going to strain yourself if we don't work on this thing, or if we don't stretch this out, yada, yada, yada. Right. Sure. And I think that that's a big reason why the Angels have so many injuries. And I know all teams do, but the Angels had the most out of the whole league. And it has to do with not having things like this.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Bunches. Bunches is a new social network built for sports fans. No politics, no doom and gloom, just sports. It's a place where you can connect with other baseball fans. You can chat about your favorite team and keep up with the latest MLB news. They've recently released a new scoreboard feature that lets you check live scores in the app and chat about the live games as they happen. Great for the playoffs right now. And right now, you can chat about your team every day when you join the Locked On Bunch by clicking the link in the episode description. Download the Bunches app today, and when you do, our friends at Bunches have a featured Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. There again, you can connect with other Locked On everydayers. Download the Bunches app, join the Locked On MLB Bunch, and you could be a part of the community today.
All right, getting into our last conversation, Mike, the lack of spending on the Halos. Let's get into, again, some more of what Sam Blum had to say in his fantastic article last week. He said, going over the luxury tax has been something that teams have been willing to do to win. And, it doesn't always work out, but teams like the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers, and the Red Sox, and the Cubs are all big market teams, right? And they finished the season beyond the luxury tax threshold in the last 5 years. So they've done it at least one time in the last 5 years. Arte Moreno has not done that since really his first season as an owner. It's been about 20 years since he went over the luxury tax. Moreno was one of 4 owners who voted against raising the luxury tax during the lockout of 2022. Surprise, surprise. We saw the Halos dump players and try to get back under the luxury tax threshold after they didn't work out this season. I understand the notion. You and I have explained this many, many times of why they did that. It still sucks.
Yep.
It's still not fun, but I get why they did it. the lack of spending here has affected the broadcasters. The radio guys don't travel. The Spanish broadcasting radio broadcast was from the broadcaster's laundry room at one point. And
right.
It's even affected former players. And here's an example. I was at this game last year against the Royals. Last June, they invited players from the 2002 team to return to Angels Stadium for a ceremony because it was the 20th anniversary. The Angels hyped up the event. They had a shirt giveaway. And then on Wednesday night against the Royals, and Ohtani was scheduled to pitch, the Angels sold nearly 35,000 tickets, which was 15,000 more than the night before. But the Angels that night didn't pay for the travel of those former players who attended the event. And it was all, again, 2002 guys.
Right.
And sources even said that they required them to foot the expense themselves if they wanted to be there.
Huh.
That's that. Yeah. If you want to come.
If you want to come.
Yeah. And to their credit, a lot of them showed up.
They did.
And it was fantastic as a fan. Yeah. But knowing that now, that pisses me off.
Frustrating. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when we talk about Arte, like we could say, it seems like he's cheap based off of the results, but he was interviewed earlier this year and he pushed back. He said, people like to focus on the investments that we made that didn't work out. They forget about Vlad Guerrero and Bartolo Colon and Torrey Hunter. But Sam puts in his article, it's been 15 years or more since those players have been with the Angels. And for many of those who have worked out for Moreno in the years, there's been a lot that hasn't worked out. And those really haven't made major headlines outside of Anaheim. But the reality is that he has to go back to the late 2000s to talk about those things. A former Angel employee said, everyone in that organization knows that they're going to be nickeled and dimed. The overwhelming perception that I got was that winning games was not the top concern from ownership. It's how can we make at least one penny more than we did last year. Now, John, it'll be easy for us to go all in on Arte. It'll be easy for us to say, this is why he's got to sell the team. But the reality is at this point, he's not selling the team.
Right.
So why have this conversation? And then what would be the talking points? Because Arte isn't selling the team. Why do we continue to talk about other things? Give me your thoughts.
I just got to say it first. Mike, I was a server at Sizzler 15 years ago, so I think I'm a really good server in 2023.
I know lots of things.
I can't get over the fact that those are the people that he referenced.
Yeah.
And it's like,
we signed Reggie Jackson back in
You remember Nolan Ryan? We had him.
Great.
Mike, we continue to have this conversation because you're right. There are a few things that are just not going to change. Arte doesn't have any plans to sell the team right now. I know he did last year, and all of our hopes were through the roof over the offseason until he crushed our hopes and dreams and said, you know what? I'm not going to sell.
Right.
And I understand, like, people's favorite comment is, well, nothing changes until Arte sells.
Right.
I get it.
Yep.
But you have, a great group of young players who go out there and do what they have to do every single day. And yes, on another team, might they have more success because they have more available to them? Yeah, probably. Perry Manassian, while he hasn't been great with free agent signings and whatnot, I think there's a lot of stuff happening in the background that is trying to push this team forward. You think about the Angels, they're like 10 years behind everybody else.
Yeah.
They really, truly are in terms of player development and coaching and analytics and stuff. And I look at what Perry's done in just the 2.5 years that he's been there. And I think about like the hires that he's made, the Driveline hires.
Yep.
People go to Driveline all the time because those are the things that are available to them to get better. And people who leave Driveline always get better. So the fact that we hired, at least over the last 2 offseasons, I know Bill Hessel's one. I know there was another one the year before.
Yeah.
I think that's really good for the Angels. I think that's really crucial and important. Now, how that stuff gets implemented, I'm not 100% sure, but at least it's something. It's pushing them forward. But again, if we keep going back to, well, nothing changes till Arte sells the team. Right. And you know what? It's gas is $7 a gallon and I can't do anything about it, but I still have to drive. Right? Am I right? Like,
You're exactly right.
That's what we have to do here is go, Arte's not going to sell the team. It doesn't change until he sells. And
Yeah.
here we are. Like,
here are some other things we can do. I think that it's really important to be just very clear. Like, yeah, we think he should sell the team. And yeah, he's wasted 2 generational talents.
Right.
It's not an original thought when you pop onto the comments and say those 2 things. Everydayers don't say that. It's those that want to pop in and say that. We know that. Everybody knows that. Every Angel fan knows that.
I'm shocked. And Artie's got to sell. I'm shocked. I'm surprised.
And the reality is that there are other things that they can do. They're going to be limited. There's going to be a lid, but there are other things that they can do. And that's what I gathered from this article is there are other things that they can do to make this team a whole lot better, right?
Yeah, there's a whole list of things that they can do to make this team a lot better. And Artie, who, says that there's an unlimited budget, well, let's see it because
show me.
We'd love to know. Again, you want to win? Show me. There's an unlimited budget for this kind of stuff? Show me because I don't see it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, you can grade the players. That link is in the episode description. And I think we've had more people do it, John, because they're probably as frustrated as us. They're like, I'm grading the players. I can't wait for that. We're going to take all of those grades, and that'll be our episodes for next week on Locked On Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Also, get into the YouTube comments. We'd love to see you there. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
It's Fan Mail Friday, and here's what I would love for you to do.
Thank God.
Here's what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to, instead of just talking about Arte and wasting 2 generational players, I would love your thoughts on how you can help this team get better. What are some things that you would like to see? Players you would like to see, development you would like to see. Use your baseball brain. Let's put it to good use, and let's talk about it tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
I love it because there's a lot of people that are smarter than us out there, and I want to hear from them. All right, friends, until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here for Fan Mail Friday.
I'm glad you read the pieces of the article you did because there were a lot of big words that I was really confused.
Your dyslexia, your lysdexia is no good.